This story begins with a term called Abandonware, which I've repeatedly found myself encountering ever since I first learned about it a few years back. Quite literally, it means software that has been abandoned, and can refer to almost any piece of code that wasn't properly preserved and just left untethered in the digital ether. Most of the time when this phrase is used, though, it is in reference to video games of the 90s and early 2000s. There are many ways that a video game can become abandonware. The copyright holders could have a custody battle, the distributors could pull it from marketplaces, the required specifications could also become abandoned, or the game itself could just be plain forgotten. Even so, there often remains at least one way that a game can escape this fate. It can be rescued and preserved by someone who loved it. It's no wonder that The Dark Eye is one such game that has been rescued. It is rare to find a horror game that can be so unsettling, yet so charming at the same time. In my spiraling journey through the most acclaimed point-and-click adventures, this was a game that did not come up very often, though when it did, there were nothing but good things said. Originally released 30 years ago and discontinued with the death of Windows 95, The Dark Eye would now be lost media, were it not for those who took measures to preserve it. This game is many things, and I shouldn't go giving all of them away in the intro, so I will instead just give you the headline. The Dark Eye is a gothic love letter to Edgar Allan Poe. It is a Poe-inspired, Poe-infused, electronic novel that might just be the single best adaptation of his writing ever. Those of you who are intrigued by that description might want to go play it yourselves, and I recommend doing so. It is a fossil among video games. The average playthrough will not be without the occasional video and audio corruption, but considering its antiquity, it runs pretty smooth. Some of the time, but for those of you who would prefer to just spectate, you're in luck. What I've got for you today is a touch different from my other video essays. There will be no sprawling diagrams of mysteries, no overly convoluted puzzles, and no man-made horrors beyond my comprehension. If nothing else, the purpose of this video is to celebrate a game that is 30 years old, and a poet who has been dead for 175.
How has this idea entered my brain? It haunts me day and night.
It is true that following my coverage of a 2006 game called Scratches, I had an interview with that game's developer, where I asked him if he had a favorite horror game. With little hesitation, he said it was this one. Shortly thereafter, I played it on the channel, but I'd be lying if I said that Augustine was the first to recommend it to me. The truth is, an internet friend of mine had been insisting that I should play this game for years, and I had always shied away from this recommendation for a variety of reasons. Little by little, the good-intentioned pestering of this internet friend, coupled with the high praise from Augustin Cordes, were enough to get me to download it. That internet friend was very excited to share it with me, and sent me a link to their Abandonware site of choice. There also may have been some mention of a manual. Whether or not that was the case, the game had finally cornered me at last. And so, goaded on by the little but loving community who adored this game, I launched The Dark Eye.
For the wild narrative which I'm about to tell, I neither expect nor ask for belief. It would be mad to expect such a thing, in a case where my own senses reject their evidence. Yet I'm not mad, and I surely do not dream.
So, there were a lot of things I did not know about this game when I first started playing, but one piece of its reputation had successfully preceded it. And that would be the game's unusual way of bringing the characters to life.
I suppose you're the young master Mr. Aldwych waits for. Go ahead on in.
That's right. They've all been done in stop-motion animation.
There you are. You haven't just come, but it's exceedingly dangerous to traverse the coast this time of day.
Already, there's something about the character animation that doesn't sit well with me. And it's not that they're stop motion. By default, the characters are moving, typically fidgeting, and then when they have something to say, they freeze.
I'm so glad you came. I find that the pleasant company of my relations calms my nerves.
I'm not sure if this weird pause is due to the game being 30 years old, or if it always ran like this. Either way, it is off-putting. In an effort to save us both some time, I've decided to abridge many of the game's awkward pauses in this video. Edwin Aldwych here is our uncle, perhaps our great-uncle by the look of him. This seaside estate is his, and from what I gather, we haven't seen him or this house in a long, long time. Perhaps not since childhood.
It's a pastime of mine. By keeping my mind occupied, I attempt to dispel some of the constitutional agitation which afflicts me.
Edwin's an old fellow now, well into, if not beyond, his golden years. These days, he spends all his time doddering over this easel.
Careful. I use a special thinner. The fumes can do all sort of damage to you. A painter I knew fairly went mad from it. Poor soul. He scratched out his own eyes in a fit of frenzy. His own eyes!
Apart from the slow-loading cutscenes of mumbly dialogue, I can't help but notice that the navigation is a special kind of jank.
Just watch that you keep the windows open.
The cursor takes a second to reconfigure itself when it decides you've found an applicable hitbox, which is to say nothing of the fact that the cursor, too, is a stop-motion human hand.
I have a surprise. Your brother Henry is here. He's upstairs visiting with Elise even now.
Our brother's here. Well, with that, Uncle Edwin gives us the run of his tumble-down seaside mansion. A place where the frames are missing their paintings. Some rooms are missing entire walls. And the outside world is missing everything. The whole thing is dripping with a sort of Southern Gothic Poe influence. There's even an old guy in the cellar slapping mortar on bricks.
Keep out of the cellar.
Sorry. Regardless, there can be no doubt that this is an Edgar Allan Poe game from the 90s. Alright, I'll just come right out and say it. I have never liked Poe. That may be atypical for a lifelong horror fan, but the guy has always just been so boring to me. His word choice is just old enough that I don't understand what he's saying, I genuinely have no interest in poetry, and all of his stories that I've read are either too short or too long. That is, of his stories I've tried to read. As is customary for the American 7th grader, I was forced to read him for a 3-week unit called Horror Lit. Cask of Amontillado, Fall of the House of Usher, fucking yellow wallpaper, I skimmed them. They did not click with me. Well, actually, I think I enjoyed the one called The Telltale Heart, only it was so long ago that I can't even remember why. Why does this room have a fish in it? I can see what this game is going for, and I get why it has a following, but it might just be having the opposite effect on me. There's something about the sight and sound of 90s video games that's always made me feel nauseous. Jagged polygons pretending to be smooth, and obnoxious artificial candy colors are things that the more recent Baldi's Basics games have done well to emulate. And the characters? I'm not quite over the initial shock. Looking at them lights up some part of my brain that makes my eyes pull back into their sockets and—
I said keep out of the cellar.
Sorry, the point of my moaning is that, for these reasons alone, I would have probably quit this game already. Call me uncultured, call me a zoomer, but the only reason I continue playing after first impressions is because my friend asked me to. Show me a stop-motion animation Lovecraft game, and I'll lose my shit. But Poe, I am ambivalent at best. Oh, good. I've just found the young people room at the family function.
What a delightful time that was.
Cousin, you've come. Oh, we're so happy.
Oh, dear brother, Delighted to see you. Please, join us.
This here is my brother Henry and my younger cousin Elise. She's somewhere in her teenage years and lives here with my uncle.
Henry has just been relating his adventures to me. He's been everywhere.
But my travels are over. I'm ready to settle down.
Their conversation only continues as you change position. Otherwise, they just fidget like this forever.
How did you find Uncle Edwin? We're worried about him. He is consumed by his paintings.
God forbid men enjoy things.
Are you unwell? You look a little peaked.
No sooner than Elise had expressed her concern, the world turned black. And when it came to, she was gone. So was Henry. So was everyone. The house was suddenly empty. The outside was this dusky orange. All the lights in the house glowed blue. And my head was full of these ghostly whispers. Could it be that I had chiefed that paint thinner too hard? And if I was hallucinating, how then did that account for the disappearance of every inhabitant of the Aldwych house? Well, not every inhabitant. It took me longer than I'd like to admit to realize it, but at this moment, I had just entered an adaptation of a famous Poe short story. Really, it should have been obvious. A moment ago, I was the nameless scion of the Aldwych clan, and now I am a wrinkly, fat, old guy. Some of you must think I'm making this part up, as a device to better tell this story, but the truth is that even when I did figure out that I was in a Poe story, I could not for the life of me discern which one. I'm scouring the 7th grade part of my brain here. Which of the old Poe stories was it, where the old man reads the newspaper and eats soup? The main hub of this little 2-bedroom apartment wasn't terribly interesting. I kept puttering about looking for cursor changes, while the old man kept noisily humming to himself. Could you stop that? At one point, I did see this weird-looking dude out in the street, but when I went to have a closer look, the front door wouldn't open.
It's late for him to still be out. He's a strange young man. A strange young man indeed.
Must be talking about his roommate, who probably lives in this room since I can't open it. And the door at the end of the hall seems to be my own bedroom. In here, I found an even greater variety of uninteresting junk.
5, 6, 660, 670, 80.
The first discovery of any possible importance was this flyer for a concert. And that music is the same tune we heard as we entered this story. I think we're to understand that it's a song the old man has stuck in his head. Between the wedding band in his drawer and the portrait of a lady on his nightstand, I'd assume he's a widower. Just looking at her makes him hear that very same music. Perhaps they met at the concert. It would be why he kept the flyer after all these years. He must be the other tenant, the one who occupies the locked room.
Oh, good evening. Oh, good evening.
Not a very talkative pair.
Care for some supper? No, thank you very much.
In the back of my head, something about this scenario is beginning to feel vaguely familiar.
Is something troubling you?
Of course not.
No, not familiar. It feels wrong. Misremembered. Almost like I've just stood up after putting my shoes on the wrong feet.
My, it's getting late.
Yes, it's been a very long day of reading soup and eating newspapers.
Good night.
Sleep well, old friend.
Retiring to his room now, the old man went to go blow out his candle, which is when I caught a glimpse of what he'd been reading. The Odyssey. Yet another 7th grade banger. That I definitely read, Mrs. Fields. The old man opens the book to a page about Polyphemus, the terrible one-eyed cyclops whom the protagonist rescues his men from. Funny that the old man should open to this page, considering. That's enough Christopher Nolan screenplays for one night.
Sleep at last.
Eyes heavy, God's sleepiest soldier crawls into bed.
It's been a long... Oh, yes.
Once the old man had really and truly tapped out, these appeared. At first, I thought these were the old man's dreams, and in a sense they are, but more specifically, I think this is supposed to be the old man's subconscious. Things he's thinking of in the night. Things that he doesn't know he knows. Cute. What else does the old man dream of? Huh.
What? Who's there?
The honest truth is that even after that ending, I still didn't know what Poe story I'd just played.
It must have been a dream. A dream dark and disturbing, a haunting dream. I was glad to find myself back in Edwin's silent home.
Forgive me, nameless narrator, but did you not say at the very beginning?
And I surely do not dream.
Huh. It's daylight outside again. Things seem to have gone back to normal. It could have just been a dream like the narrator said, probably brought on by huffing Edwin's paint thinner. What the hell is that?
It's a portrait of my mother. She died when I was quite young. God rest her soul. I suppose you might say she resembles Elise. Something about the eye. Where is Elise? She's been spending far too much time with your brother.
If one whiff of that paint thinner sent me into an alternate dimension, Edwin must be in fucking Agartha around the clock. How am I supposed to look at his paintings and think anything but he's losing his mind? What's he painting right now? Henry, we gotta sign Edwin up with the fucking visiting angels or some shit.
I'm glad you've come. I have determined to ask Elise's hand. I know it's foolish, but my heart pounds so earnestly within. Surely you understand.
So when I was told that this was an Edgar Allan Poe game, I didn't know that meant it was an Edgar Allan Poe game.
I fear Edwin will be opposed. He dotes on her so, and he's always been contemptuous of my circumstances. Please, speak well of me to him. It means my whole life. I must speak with her.
I see that we're now tapping into the author's life for the A-plot. Infamously, Poe, too, married his first cousin Virginia. He was 26, and she was half that. I can only assume that my brother Henry and my cousin Elise are sporting a similar age gap, given the Poe influence. What's this letter she wrote him? Dearest Henry, your recent declarations have left me
at an extremity of emotion. For my part, your tender affections are gratefully received, but at the same moment, I am confused and uncertain. You will forgive me if I spend today alone in the fresh air, while I hope to order my thoughts. Affectionately, Elise.
Yeah, I found a girl to read that. Edwin's gonna fucking lose it when he finds out about the proposal. Where's he gone? Not in his study. Not at his desk. Not in the basement.
Had bad dreams last night, did you?
How does he know about that? Oh, looks like Henry found him first.
I won't hear of it. I simply won't hear of it.
Edwin, please, see reason.
She's far too young for you, for any man. Are you insane? She's your cousin, for God's sake.
What of her wishes?
Elise is confined to her room, indefinitely. And you, young man, stay clear of me.
And now we're back in Agartha. Now then. The world is dark, the house is empty, and my head is full of whispers again. Can I continue the old man's story? Yes, looks like I can. Wait, no, it just restarted. Yeah, this is the same as it was before. Or is it?
Oh. Sleep at last.
Yep, it's the exact same story. Complete with the same dreams at night. You know, actually, I didn't get a chance to click on this one last time. That's our roommate. With a...
What? Who's there?
Wait. Old man with a bad eye. Young man with a lantern. Heart pounding in my ears? This is the Telltale Heart, isn't it? Why didn't I recognize it before? Hang on. True, I was very dreadfully nervous, but why do people say that I am mad? I loved the old man. That's why. That's why I didn't recognize it. The original story is written from the young man's perspective. So, why on earth did they make the game from the old man's point of view? The Telltale Heart doesn't work when told from the old man. He's dead for the entire story. It's as if the game's adaptation has removed almost everything I liked about the original. Why? And the house is still dark. Well, verifiably there's nothing left for me in that story, so it stands to reason that somewhere else in the house there are other items like this fish which will allow me to enter another Poe story. There was a piano upstairs. Wasn't there an old Poe story about a piano? Wait, no. I'm thinking of Warnings at Waverly Academy. There can be no mistaking this one. This is the Cask of Amontillado. Unlike the Telltale Heart, this is a story that I do remember quite well, if only by virtue of it being so difficult to forget. It's a pretty weird setting for a story, even a Poe story. We're in Venice, aren't we? In the midst of the Carnival season?
Wonderful costume, Signore Fortunato. Wonderful. Can I get anything for you? It would be an honor. Anything at all.
So we are Fortunato. I thought as much from the jester hat. This guy Fortunato is a rich and powerful noble. He is feared by some, respected by many, but certainly loved by all.
That medallion must be worth 1,000 florins. You must be cheating me.
If memory serves me right, Fortunato is in high spirits but poor health. He's been suffering from a vicious cough for weeks now, but not even that comes between him and a good party. It was then that I encountered one of the first real problems that impeded my Dark Eye experience, no doubt brought on by the game's age. Some of the voice lines are corrupted. I think that this is a problem with the copy I downloaded, as there are some recordings of the game online where every line is intact, but nevertheless it is a jarring hiccup. Being that there are no subtitles, I'm just left here playing charades with Lucchese. It's a good thing Italians have a habit of talking with their hands. The other sights and sounds of Carnival were at least fully operational. This included, but was not limited to, a background chatter track that seemed to loop every 10 seconds.
Oh, nice to see you, nice to see you.
And the very many women that Fortunato flirts with.
Signore Fortunato, I've been waiting for you to call on me at my villa.
I've been waiting for your husband to leave town.
Shame on you.
Yes, Fortunato is certainly of a coveted status. Women want him, for some reason, and men want to be him. And while it is true that he may at times fall victim to some vices, whether it be his love of women, his love of money, or even his love of himself, he has one ultimate vice which trumps all the others. And that would be his love of...
Here for some wine? It's a lovely sauterne.
Looks like Lucchese has gotten his voice back. Yes, Fortunato has a particular fondness for wine. In fact, he is widely recognized as an expert in the stuff.
Young, straightforward, rather blunt, drinkable.
It's funny that the game has assigned us to play as Fortunato, because, much like the old man, he is also not the protagonist of the original work. The real protagonist must be nearby. Signore Montresor. That was strange.
Look at that fellow, haunting the shoreline. Chilling.
Further down the bridge, Fortunato continues to ogle at the same married woman.
I'd wager she could scratch up a storm. Nothing like a few welts to remind one of a night of passion.
Holy shit, Fortunato, chill. Fortunato, chill! He rounds the corner and meets a beggar, where he again displays his bottomless wealth of generosity.
When will they clear the streets of these scoundrels? They should be chained up.
And then at last, he collides with the masked man he saw from across the canal. Oh. Montresor's lines are broken too. Well, I suppose this is one of the risks you run in playing Abandonware. Short of installing a different copy, which might not even fix the problem, there really isn't any way for me to know what it is that Montresor is saying. My dear Fortunato, you are luckily met. How remarkably well you are looking today. But I have received a pipe of what passes for Amontillado, and I have my doubts. How, said he, Amontillado? A pipe? Impossible! And in the middle of the carnival! I have my doubts, I replied, and I was silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price without consulting you in the matter. You were not to be found, and I was fearful of losing a bargain. Amontillado! I have my doubts. Amontillado! And I must satisfy them.
Amontillado!
As you are engaged, I am on my way to Lucchese. If anyone has a critical turn, it is he. He will tell me...
Lucchese can't tell Amontillado from gutter water.
And yet some fools will have it that his taste is a match for your own.
Let's go.
Whither?
To your vaults. Let us go.
So the fellow wine enthusiast Montresor invites us back to his villa so that we can taste the wine he's bought to see if it really is Amontillado. The stuff is expensive as it is, but to find such a large quantity for sale is exceptionally rare.
A cask of Amontillado. Must have been cheated. It's unheard of.
Whether or not he's been cheated, there will be wine for Fortunato to taste and an opportunity to boast his sophisticated palate.
You are afflicted with a severe cold. The vaults are insufferably damp. They are encrusted with niter. Let us return. I'll consult Lucchese.
The cold is nothing. Lucchese is an ignoramus.
And so we carry on, at Fortunato's insistence.
This is my coat of arms.
Wait. No, it's not. And I only know that because I have the book open right in front of me. The original crest in the book is described as a huge human foot d'or in a field of azure. The foot crushes a serpent rampant, whose fangs are embedded in the heel. The motto reads, Nemo me impuni lacessit. That's Latin for...
No one harms me with impunity.
Yes. No one harms me with impunity.
Most unusual.
It's dark in there. You won't get far without a torch.
We came at length to the foot of the descent, and stood together on the damp ground of the catacombs of the Montresors. God, it really is a catacomb, isn't it? Did the Venetian nobles really have shit like this scattered around beneath their palazzos?
These vaults are extensive.
The Montresors were a great and numerous family.
Fortunato's sickness does not mingle well with the dampness of the vaults. The niter in the air agitates his lungs, and he frequently explodes into uncontrollable fits of coughing.
This way.
In the original book, Montresor then offers Fortunato a bottle of wine to medicate his cough. Here in this game, we help ourselves without asking permission. He raised it to his lips with a leer. He paused and nodded to me familiarly, while his bells jingled.
I drink to the barrier that repose around us.
And to your long life.
Elsewhere in the vaults, Fortunato begins to take notice of the innumerable dead that litter the place.
Poor fellows. What a fate.
Really, I'm not quite over the whole walls being made of skeletons shit. Where do you even get this many dead people? And why does Montresor keep doing that when I look at him?
Come along.
What's this? You're not a mason, are you?
A what?
What are they talking about now? Okay, so in the book, Fortunato empties a bottle of wine into his mouth and then throws up a gang sign for the Freemasons, a little secret society that you may have heard of. Montresor does not reciprocate, and Fortunato realizes that Montresor isn't a member of the Masons. But then, Montresor insists that he is a Mason. A sign, he said. It is this, I answered, producing a trowel from beneath the folds of my roquelaire.
Therein lies the Amontillado.
The Amontillado.
Telling this story from the perspective of Fortunato is certainly a spin from the original. This way, the player is left in the dark about some very important context that the reader would know from the first sentence. Like the fact that no one likes Fortunato, actually.
What's this?
Least of all, Montresor, who despises him. No voice again? Very well. Throwing the links about his waist, it was but the work of a few seconds to secure it. he was too much astounded to resist. Indeed, it is very damp. Once more, let me implore you to return. No? Then I must positively leave you. But I must first render you all the little attentions in my power.
Joke. An excellent joke. We'll have many laughs about it at Palazzo over some wine.
The Amontillado.
Yes. The Amontillado. It's getting late. My wife will be looking for me. Let us be gone.
Yes, let us be gone.
Confronted with it again, I'm reminded of why I didn't like this story in the first place, and why I was never able to forget it.
For the love of God, Montresor!
Yes, for the love of God.
It's fucking sad. Now that we've been walled off from the original narrator, we move into a realm of complete original fiction. Poe never wrote any of this. Fortunato's final moments.
Tomorrow is the day. We'll be rich beyond imagination.
He thinks of the wine. And of his mistress.
My husband will be away. All next week.
And of his son. The fire dies, taking the last of the oxygen with it. Or at least, that was how I always hoped he died. Having just escaped what was, admittedly, a pretty solid retelling of the Cask of Amontillado, bogged down only by some audio corruptions, I found myself more frustrated than anything. Why could the Telltale Heart not have received the same treatment? I get that the game is going for the whole experience the stories from the view of the victims thing, which is not without merit, but I maintain that the Telltale Heart just doesn't fit that model. Well, now we're back to this soap opera. Edwin, have you called Dateline NBC?
The man's family name has been dishonored. What's to be done? Your brother has dishonored your name, seducing his cousin still in her minority.
Double whammy, I know.
Once the dread mark is made, it cannot be struck out. We avoid complete disgrace only by taking immediate action. Immediate action. I've confined Elise to her rooms. You are not to help them communicate in any way.
He worries me sometimes. What's he been painting now?
Come in. Oh, cousin. Uncle Edwin has become very angry. He's forbidden me from even speaking to Henry. Render me a service, won't you? Will you please take this note to Henry? You mustn't tell Uncle. I shall be forever grateful. I feel much better. Here, you play, I'll sing. please?
The main story of this game is quite the puzzle so far. I'm fairly certain that this A-plot isn't actually a Poe story. If anything, it might be a Frankenstein creation of several. It's easy to see the influences in the antiquated jargon of the characters, the crumbling Gothic home manned by an aging patriarch, and the wallpaper. That wallpaper might literally be Poe. But this story in and of itself is not an adaptation, and it certainly does not resonate with me. In fact, it's really starting to get on my nerves.
Please, keep playing.
The characters walk and talk like a child playing with dolls, only the subject matter is alarmingly mature. The incest and grooming plot makes me question if children were ever actually
Oh my. Blood.
As much as I'm enjoying this curated retelling of Uncle Edwin's horror house, I am obligated not to skip this ugly but important phase of the game, where it really began to chafe. By now, the structure of the game was beginning to make sense to me. When the house goes dark, you find an item that transports you to a famous Poe short story, and then when you complete it, you get sent back to the Aldrich house for another daylight chapter of the soap opera. There are no puzzles or diverging paths of any real consequence. You just keep on playing all the horror stories until this guy on the pause screen fills his entire skull up with weird shit. Perhaps I should have mentioned this weird pause screen sooner. At the beginning of the game, it was entirely empty. Now, about an hour in, some of the compartments have begun to fill up. That symbol means we played the Telltale Heart, that symbol means we played Amontillado, and the rest, I could only assume, were adaptations I was yet to uncover. And only 2 out of 8. The game was beginning to look bigger than I had anticipated. I began with a look in the room upstairs that was actively falling apart. I was thinking, this one will take me to the fall of the House of Usher, won't it? But it did not.
It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived, whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee.
Rather than a Poe story, this one was a Poe poem. A Gothic love poem, too. Annabel Lee was markedly different from the other 2 stories. It wasn't actually interactive, it was just a 2-minute recital accompanied by these weird mixed-media slides. The strangest part might have been that the poem itself was narrated by Uncle Edwin of all people.
Cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee.
A young couple are in love, then she dies suddenly, and he spends the rest of his nights sleeping next to her tomb. I'm butchering it, of course. Like I said, it's not my thing. But I especially did not understand why it was narrated by Uncle Edwin. Was he supposed to be the in-world author of the poem? Is he Edwin Allan Poe?
And so all the night tide I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in the sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea.
Then it got even more confusing. The poem ended, and the game returned me to the house, but it was still the whispery nightmare mode. Either the game has glitched, or I'm not supposed to progress from seeing this poem, but wait, hold up! Annabel Lee is now clearly marked on the pause screen. So according to the game, that 2-minute poem was of equal content to the retelling of Amontillado. I could not help but feel slightly cheated. Thereafter, I went to the cellar in hopes of finding a real stop-motion adaptation. Past the spot that Ambers had haunted, there ran a long corridor all the way down to the Aldrich family vaults. I kept along by the dim torchlight, navigating through the jankest of hitboxes, until suddenly, I wasn't in the cellar anymore. I was in a medieval throne room. And then when I saw the mural, the faint memories of a cheesy old Vincent Price movie came back to me. A slideshow began, and once again Uncle Edwin began narrating. He had only gotten mumblier, but an introductory preamble was at least warranted with this one. Even I knew that Mask of the Red Death was a longer story than Amontillado and Telltale Heart combined. Edwin kept talking,
so fatal or so hideous.
And he kept on talking.
And then profuse bleeding at the pores.
And he kept on talking.
This was an extensive and magnificent structure of itself. In the meantime, it was folly to grieve or to think. The prince had provided all the appliances of pleasure. There were
Edwin spoke for a good 15 minutes, it felt like, accompanied by more of those dizzying slides that tried in vain to retell a 40-page story.
Red Death held illimitable dominion over all.
Finally, when he had finished speaking, it spit me right back into the throne room. I checked the pause screen. Sure enough, now there was a symbol for the Mask of the Red Death. Was that seriously all the game did for this story too? I escaped the cellar with my patience running thin. My search for actual gameplay in this so-called interactive CD-ROM took me to the gallery, where I realized that all the empty picture frames, too, had been filling up with the adaptations I had just been playing. Telltale Heart, Amontillado, Annabelle Lee, Red Death. Now there was only one empty picture frame remaining. But the pause screen showed 4 empty compartments. Am I halfway done? Or am I nearly done? Which is it, Inkscape? Tell me! At long last, I found another object to transpose myself into an adaptation. A good, real, meaty adaptation like the first 2. It was a birdcage in Uncle Edwin's study. Yes, the whispers get louder. I see my reflection in the metal. I swear to God, if I get another fucking slideshow... Game crash. I can hardly believe that was the first one. I reopened DOSBox, launched the game, and was then met with the harsh realization that 90s games did not have autosave. My profile was gone, and so was the last of my interest. Later that week, I'm back to my usual villainy. Hadn't thought about the Dark Eye much at all since I put it down, and I especially wasn't thinking about playing it again. And then, I got a text. It was the friend who had asked me to play it. Finding the manual for a video game that's been abandoned for longer than I've been alive was a little more complicated than I expected. Not because it was some hidden arcane knowledge, though, but because I kept on getting distracted by little things I learned along the way. The first thing that really caught my eye was the fact that the character of Uncle Edwin was actually voiced by a celebrity of sorts, an author by the name of William S. Burroughs. Paragon of culture that I am, I'd never heard of the guy. So the choice to have him voice act in this game only became more bizarre the further I looked into him. He was a famous author of the Beat generation, had a lifelong fascination with magic and the occult, wrote primarily on what I can best describe as libertine topics, and ultimately lived a wild life fraught with addiction, crime, and tragedy. Though the specifics of the event are still commonly debated, it is widely recognized that he killed his wife. He had a brief stint in movies in the late 80s and early 90s. In 95, he took his first ever voice acting role in video games, one such game being The Dark Eye, and 2 years later, he was dead. It's unclear to me how he became involved with this project. Could be that he was simply looking for work, or perhaps that the creative team scouted him out, wanting to make use of his peculiar way of speaking.
Incidentally, the damage to health is minimal, no matter what the American Narcotics Department may say.
Speaking of the creative team, the same wiki page predominantly featured a quote from the art director elaborating on why they went with stop-motion animation. Her stated goal was to subvert the look of computer 3D art by creating a more homemade feel. Reading that made me realize something that I've always sort of known, that old computer 3D art is exactly the thing I've always been so averse to in 90s games. And the Dark Eye has some of that 3D ugliness, most often in the hastily made backgrounds, but the handmade characters are a different kind of freaky. Almost like the freaky squids at the bottom of the ocean. The kind of thing you feel repulsed by, but can't look away from. The wiki spoke more about the game's unapologetic weirdness, how it partially accounts for its cult classic status, and then, before I knew it, I was reading about phrenology, an extinct pseudoscience from Poe's lifetime. It was this crazy theory predicated on the belief that the human skull grows to fit the exact shape of the brain, a thing which is completely and utterly untrue. But using this theory, phrenologists or bumpologists believed that inferences could be drawn about the psyche of an individual by studying the bumps on their skull. Notoriously, this belief was a favorite among social Darwinists in the 19th century, but it was also widely believed by Poe himself, who, by all accounts, was an avid phrenologist. In fact, it is often thought that Poe favored himself being depicted with a giant forehead because, phrenologically speaking, a large forehead suggested ideality, which was the phrenologist's way of saying you have the headspace of an author, or something similarly gloopy. I mention this because the phrenology motif is everywhere in The Dark Eye. It's on Edwin's desk, it's on the pause screen, and it's even the first thing you read when you launch the game. This phrenological study has been prepared for, and then the player's name. Nowhere did the game make any attempt to explain this to the player. The word is never said out loud once and only ever appears in writing in this one instance on the start screen. How then was a player, let alone a child playing this game in 1995, supposed to know what phrenology was? From the manual. Yes, indeed, there was a time when reading the manual that came in the box was essential to playing the game. Like a caveman, I accessed it by reinstalling the game and waiting for the open manual prompt to reappear. Once inside the ancient PDF, I found that there was, after all, a little blurb about phrenology, clarifying its link to Poe and its use in the game. Apart from flavor, the weird pause screen was indeed a phrenology map after all. When you begin a new game, the phrenology map is blank, but as you explore each world, icons will appear within the frame of the map, representing your progress. And then, at the very bottom of the page, I found what was, without a doubt, the thing my internet friend had initially wanted me to read about. During your nightmare experiences, you may leave the confines of the mind and body you inhabit and enter those of another. These soul jump opportunities are signaled by the appearance of a flickering reflection of your face in the eyes of another character. Cautiously aware that a single game crash might delete my progress once again, I started a new profile and replayed the game back to where I was the last time.
Sleep at last.
All in all, it took me less than an hour, with a good chunk of that time just being watching the Mask of the Red Death slideshow all over again. And then, once this new playthrough was identical to the one I had played before, I re-entered the cask of Amontillado, and I looked across the canal to Montresor.
Revenge means nothing unless the avenger makes himself known to his victim. Of course, when one takes revenge, one wants to take it slowly. One wants to be avenged at length.
The original text never explicitly states why it is that Montresor has made this terrible plan. All we know is that his hatred for Fortunato is secret and intense.
He has a weakness, this Fortunato. In some regards, he is a man to be respected, and even feared. Still, he has his weaknesses. For years I've suffered his injuries, but now he has ventured upon insult.
The first step of Montresor's plan is to ensure that there will be no witnesses at his estate.
Sir?
Return to the villa. Tell the livery that I shall be out all night. They are forbidden to leave the house.
Yes, sir. Immediately, sir.
That will ensure their immediate disappearance, now that my back is turned.
Passing through the crowd, Montresor is not easily recognized.
Who's that?
No one, Senora. No one at all.
And when he is, he denies it. Even when he's fooling no one.
Excuse me, aren't you Montresor?
I'm afraid I don't know that gentleman.
The stickler for fiction in me wants to point out that Montresor just denied his identity to this guy right before he's about to turn and greet Fortunato in earshot. I don't believe it for a second. But maybe I'm not supposed to.
Who's that under the mask? Why, it's Montresor.
Fortunato. What a surprise. My dear Fortunato, I wonder if you could help me. I've bought a small cask of what passes for Amontillado, but I have my doubts.
Amontillado?
But I have my doubts.
A cask, Montresor. And in the middle of carnival? Impossible.
I have my doubts. I was foolish enough to pay full price without consulting Fortunato in the matter. Lucchese has a discerning palate. Perhaps he could take a sip.
Bah, Lucchese can't tell Amontillado from gutter water.
Montresor's plan demonstrates how well he knows Fortunato. He exerts no insistence that he should accompany him, but instead just sets the bait.
Let's go.
Where?
To your vaults.
But surely your wife is looking for you.
She'll see me soon enough. Let us go.
This account is similar, though strangely not identical, to Fortunato's.
My friend, this is madness.
Little differences in the narrative make me question which perspective is the truth, assuming either one of them is.
The cold is nothing. Lucchese is an ignoramus.
This way.
It's a special kind of unease. There's no twist or surprise on the way. I've been here before.
This way.
I know what's going to happen. I'm the one who's going to do it.
A draft of Medoc will keep us from the damps.
But I have no choice.
Enjoy. It will still the cough.
I go unwillingly into this horror story, unable to. Oh, but there is a choice. I can be the victim or the victimizer. There is no in-between.
Come,
We will go back.
your health is precious. You are rich, respected, admired, beloved. You are happy, as I once was. You are a man to be missed. For me, it's no matter.
Cough is nothing. It won't kill me. I won't die of a cough.
True, true.
When you play as Montresor, on occasion you hear him mutter to himself.
He has a weakness.
And if you listen very carefully, you may even catch a subtle hint that his intentions may be impure.
Revenge. Therein lies the Amontillado.
The Amontillado.
From here to the end, it all goes down the same way for Montresor as it did for Fortunato, the only difference being that we're standing on the other side of the wall. What is curious, though, is that the game has made some changes to the interactions of the final page of the story. Some things happen out of order, and other things have been left out. Out of my own interest, I have chosen to rearrange the remainder of this chapter, so that what I show you might closer resemble the original work. I laid the second tier, the third, and the fourth, and then I heard the furious vibration of the chain. The noise lasted for several minutes, during which, that I might hearken to it with the more satisfaction, I ceased my labors and sat down upon the bones. A succession of loud and shrill screams, bursting suddenly from the throat of the chained form, seemed to thrust me violently back. For a brief moment, I hesitated. I trembled. But the thought of an instant reassured me. I placed my hand upon the solid fabric of the catacombs and felt satisfied. I reapproached the wall. I replied to the yells of him who clamored. I re-echoed. I aided. I surpassed them in volume and in strength. I did this, and the clamorer grew still. It was now midnight, and my task was drawing to a close. I had completed the 8th, and 9th, and the 10th tier. I had finished a portion of the last and the 11th, and there remained but a single stone to be fitted and plastered in. I struggled with its weight. I placed it partially in its destined position. But now there came from out the niche a low laugh that erected the hairs upon my head. It was succeeded by a sad voice, which I had difficulty in recognizing, is that of the noble Fortunato.
A good joke. An excellent joke. We'll have many laughs about it at the palazzo over some wine.
The Amontillado.
Yes. The Amontillado. It's getting late. My wife will be looking for me. Let us be gone.
Yes, let us be gone.
For the love of God, Montresor!
Yes, for the love of God.
But to these words, I hearkened in vain for a reply. I grew impatient. I called aloud.
Fortunato?
No answer. I called again. No answer still. I thrust a torch through the remaining aperture and let it fall within. There came forth in return only a jingling of the bells.
My heart grows sick. It's due to the dampness.
And then, to my utter shock, the creators of this game left out the best part. The thing that made all the difference in the world to me. In the game, Montresor scoffs,
In pace requiescat.
but in the original text he says, against the new masonry, I re-erected the old rampart of bones. For the half of a century, no mortal has disturbed them. In pace requiescat. I had forgotten the A-plot was even a thing. Last time I was here, Elise began coughing up blood. That was after I played the piano for her while she sang, which was after she gave me a letter. I never did deliver that letter like she asked, did I? No. It's still sitting right here on the piano.
My beloved Henry, my darling, I am confused and frightened. Your declaration came on unexpectedly, and Uncle is right when he says that I'm far too young to entertain proposals of marriage. The two men who mean the most to me are in opposition. I fear the result will be for Uncle to send you far, far away, and I shall never see you again. If so, please, please remember me always. Forever yours, Elise.
From Elise? Wait! I need your help. Edwin has become completely unbalanced. He's violently angry. He even refuses to call for a doctor, claiming her condition is due to my unnatural advances. We must conspire against him. We must take Elise from this dark place. You, my brother, you must help me.
The Mistress Elise is no more. She is dead.
This is likely the moment where I first became aware of the A-plot's transformation. Since the very beginning, something about the characters was offbeat. Overly theatrical in their gestures, caricaturistic in their wording, but all they had ever done was make small talk and mince words. This gave an uncanny yet silly impression, almost like I was watching a puppet show or a school play. But now the subject matter has considerably darkened. A child has just died, and we're watching her guardian pull a shroud over her as he announces his sorrow to the room.
It's my fault. All my fault. I loved her as I've never loved.
He sounds as if he's reading lines from a children's storybook.
I refused to believe she was ill. My mother, my dear, dear mother, died in much the same way.
The story is changed, but the tones remain the same, especially Edwin's. It's become so distracting that I have no choice but to assume it's intentional. And it's beginning to remind me of another game, where serious characters spoke in silly ways.
No. I detest trickery.
You discard the secret of Henry's proposal. It only blackens her memory that she should die under indecent circumstances.
Cousin, there was nothing indecent about my affection. Surely my grief compares with yours.
Please leave me to grieve properly.
And then out of the blue, Henry made the most outrageous request, a half-court shot of a request, of the grief-stricken Edwin.
I ask only that you allow me to sit vigil, just until dawn.
In what world Henry thought Edwin would allow that, I have no idea.
Yes, it would be proper.
Forget the player's lack of will, the characters don't seem to have any either. They bicker back and forth over wedding blessings and guardianship, and then immediately acquiesce to one another's requests if it means the plot will carry on.
Your brother will need light. Go fetch the lantern I was filling in my study.
At the surface level, this is objectively poor writing. But for some reason, it feels totally deliberate.
Good, set it here.
Thank you.
So, we've established from the manual that perspectives in the adaptations can be manually switched out by finding moments where the eyes jingle. Sometimes these are at the beginning of adaptations, sometimes they appear halfway through, but nowhere in the old man story did I ever encounter an opportunity to become the young man. And I would know, I've played it like 4 times now.
Sleep at last.
It could be a corruption of my copy, and those changeover moments just won't load. Much like how sometimes the voice lines break and characters just gesture without saying anything. Or could it be that all along, there have been 2 beginnings to every story?
True. Nervous. Very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why do people say that I am mad?
Here we have a more typical Poe protagonist in the nameless young man. He's deranged beyond question, and doesn't seem to understand how he looks to the rest of the world.
I don't want his money.
He's terribly vain, and repeats again and again throughout the text, as if speaking to his interrogators, that he's not a madman. It's very, very important to him that you understand he's not mad, but clever. The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How, then, am I mad? A visit to his bedroom helps to answer just that. He draws a lot and keeps these sketches plastered all over his walls. Some of them seem to depict a familiar, fat old man. He picks up a pen and sketches him effortlessly. And then, as if on an impulse, he furiously blots him out.
I don't want his money. How has this idea entered my brain? It haunts me day and night.
Well, this scene looks familiar.
He's done me no harm.
How strange to see it from the other side of the table.
You look as though you could use some hot soup.
It used to be that the young man refused the soup. Now he doesn't resist. Yet he doesn't eat either.
What is it? What is it about him that makes my blood run cold?
I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. One of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold. And so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever.
You don't want your soup? It's cooling. It's grown late. Good night, young man.
The old man is said to retire at 9 p.m.
Good night.
But the young man lingers. He stands and watches the clock, unmoving. It's not until the hour strikes 12 that he can be sure the old man is fast asleep. And then, quiet as a shadow, he tiptoes down the hall and fetches a lantern.
fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing but me. I proceed with wisdom, with caution, with foresight. Gently, oh so gently. He'd have to be a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night, just at 12, I look in on him while he sleeps.
With one hand on the latch, the young man carefully undoes the lantern's aperture.
Stealthily.
With only a sliver of light revealing the room, he searches for the old man, and...
Closed. The eye is closed.
Oh, that's right. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed. And so it was impossible to do the work. For it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. That's why he hasn't already killed the old man a week ago. He can't bring himself to do it unless the eye is open. Otherwise, he would only be killing his friend. So, as he has done for the last 7 nights, he tries again the next day.
Here I am, opening the door little by little, and he doesn't even dream of my secret deeds or thoughts.
I fairly chuckled at the idea. And perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly, as if startled.
Did he hear? Should I go back?
His room was as black as pitch with the thick darkness, for the shutters were close fastened, and so I knew that he could not see the opening of the door. No, the game has got it wrong. The windows should be shuttered. It's supposed to be pitch black in here. No. Not quite. That's better. I had my head in, and was about to open the lantern, when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in bed, crying out,
"Who's there?"
I kept quite still, and said nothing. For a whole hour, I did not move a muscle. And in the meantime, I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed, listening, just as I have done, night after night.
Oh. I know that groan. It's the low sound that rises from the bottom of the soul when charged with mortal terror. Many at midnight it wails up from my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo the terrors that distract me. Yes, I know it well.
Oh. What could it be? Someone? Who? Nothing. The wind in the chimney. A mouse. It must have been a cricket. Yes, a cricket that made a single chirp.
Poor old man. He's been lying awake ever since that first noise, his fears growing, trying to fancy them causeless, but he cannot, because death, stalking with his black shadow before him, has enveloped the victim.
When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern.
Stealthily. Stealthily.
Until at length, a single dim ray, like the thread of the spider, shot from out the crevice and full upon the vulture eye. It was open. Wide, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue, with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. Then came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton.
My God. His heartbeat. He must be terrified.
The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well? I have told you that I am nervous, so I am. And now at the dead hour of the night, amid the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. His heart will burst.
Surely it will burst.
What if a neighbor should hear it?
The old man's hour had come. He shrieked once. Once only.
There. No more.
But, for many minutes, the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. At length, it ceased.
At last. Dead. Stone dead. Now, what shall I do with the body?
If you still think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body.
I worked hastily, in silence. I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head and the arms and the legs. Nothing to wash out. No blood spot whatever. All has been caught in a tub. There, all deposited neatly between the scatlings. Replaced so cunningly, no human eye, not even his, could detect anything wrong.
When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear?
Sorry to disturb you, sir, but somebody or other heard a scream or some such. Called us up. We've got to check these things out.
What are you doing awake at this hour?
That'll do, Finlay.
Do come in, please, do.
Well, what about the scream, Sarge?
Oh, the scream, sir. What do you know about anything like that?
Oh, that was I, Sergeant. I called out in a nightmare. I'm given to nervous fits.
A genteel man like yourself?
Well, what about the old man that lives here?
Finlay!
Gone to the country. Lucky man.
Might we be looking about a bit?
Of course. Certainly. Search.
I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search. Search well.
Check over there. The stove as well.
Yes, sir. Sir.
I led them, at length, to his chamber.
You'll want especially to look into the old man's room. Yes, look particularly here.
In here, boys.
Watch it.
Sorry.
Sit, all of you. Do.
Don't mind if I do.
They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things.
It's been a long day.
He keeps his treasure in that drawer there. Of course, they don't suspect me. My manner has assuaged them. Indeed, they are delightful fellows.
Oh, it's a lovely night, though. The stars are out in all their glory.
Hasn't been disturbed, sir.
Well, everything seems to be in order.
Don't go. No, stay. Stay a moment. Rest yourselves from your various fatigues.
But, ere long, I felt myself getting pale, and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears. But still they sat, and still chatted.
Ah, my head. And what is that annoying ringing in my ears?
The ringing became more distinct. It continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definitiveness.
Will they never be gone? And that ringing... But wait, it's not in my ears, it's... My God!
No doubt I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently, and with a heightened voice. Yet the sound increased. And what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton.
Can't they hear it? No. I'm safe. If only they'll leave. They must hear it. They must. And still, how is it they don't hear it?
I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observations of the men, but the noise steadily increased. It grew louder, 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 and still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? No. They hear. They suspect.
They know. They're mocking me. Villains, cruel villains. Stop! Stop! I admit it. I confess. Tear up the planks. Here. Here. It is the beating of his hideous heart.
Her funeral procession began and ended inside the house.
I have determined to place my dear niece in the lower vault. The ground outside is far too marshy this time of year for a proper burial. Please light the way.
As mindless as the rest of them, I did as they asked.
I made my descent to the cellar.
Useless narrator? Where have you been all this time? I've been talking my ass off.
My companions with their dreadful burden just steps behind. We penetrated into the dank basement, the lantern pushing back the darkness. What I could see in the black floated before my eyes. My eyes themselves felt as though they had turned to ice, and now sat chill and spiked in my heavy skull. These harrowing reflections haunted me until we reached the lower vault. We entered carefully and placed the coffin on two spindly wooden trestles, set there for such a purpose. Our labor was without ceremony.
Come now. Peace be with her.
I can't bear to leave her here, all alone in the dark. Dear brother, do leave the lantern. Leave her a small source of light. We'll go back in the darkness. Thank you.
Ambers, seal the vault securely. Leave the key with me. Come, gentlemen.
Upstairs in the piano room, I have confirmed that Amontillado has two different entry points, much like the Telltale Heart. A wine glass for Fortunato, and a bottle for Montresor. The phrenology framework is nearly full, only 2 empty spots remain. Let's hope that's an actual double-sided story, and not just another poetry slam. This letter opener, and this birdcage. Undoubtedly, they are the final chapters of the game. Please, whatever you do, Dark Eye, don't crash. Poe fans watching this video, I'd love to pick your brains for a moment. Having seen the other adaptations that this game has now carried out, and having seen the style in which they've been shown, I want to ask you, what do you suppose the final adaptation should be? And then, when you have your answer, I'd really like to know if any of you expected it to be this one. This story of his that was so obscure that the Netflix Follow the House of Usher didn't even bother with it. With my own knowledge of Poe's works being, of course, limited, I found myself grasping for any indicator as to what story I was playing. It seemed I was a woman, a pitiful, sickly woman with a pale face and sunken eyes, but beyond that, I had no clue.
I have no daughters of my own. I hope you'll wear this, my wedding dress, when that happy day arrives for you.
Good morning, miss. I thought I'd look in to see if you're feeling something better.
Yes, thank you, Catherine. Yes, miss.
So we're wealthy enough to have a servant, ill enough that she comes to check on us, and unmarried. To her desk I went searching for more clues. Here I found a poem, which I later discovered to be another Poe original, along with an old flower that spurred on a memory of some guy. There was a bottle of medicine, too, complete with her recollection of the doctor's orders.
When you feel dizzy, you must take a swallow of this. It will help mitigate the seizure. Also, I must counsel bed rest. Try to stay in as much as possible.
And lastly, there was a letter she had been writing to a friend.
Dear Emily, At long last, spring has come. Doctor says I am not to go out. He gives careful instructions for my every exertion. This I find particularly dismaying. I keenly miss the days of my exuberant youth. Cousin Egaeus continues to treat me with perfect kindness and generosity. It must be difficult for him to maintain an invalid for so long. He himself suffers an affliction of the nerves, and the strain of providing for me cannot be a small matter to him. He has been my closest companion all my life, and I feel such affection for him that the slight act of writing his name can cause tears to fall. Your loving friend, Berenice.
Berenice. It was beginning to look like I had struck out and gotten a gothic love story for the final adaptation. She lived in a pretty old house, not so dissimilar to Uncle Edwin's. A grand staircase divided the foyer, and left of the landing I found a closed door.
Yes?
On the other side of the door was a cozy little library, where a man I recognized from a vision sat behind the desk, seemingly busy with something.
Cousin, you never leave this room. Come for a stroll. He seems miles from here.
Seems that the audio has again corrupted. I take it that this is our cousin, Egaeus.
Berenice, will you marry me?
Holy shit, that's gotta be a record.
Egaeus. Oh, Egaeus. Of course I will.
Fetch the doctor. Find her medicine.
In full force, we are then shown the severity of Berenice's epilepsy. Days go by where she lies motionless in bed, nearly catatonic, as the shadows climb up and down the walls. It's as if she's a prisoner in her own body. In spite of her condition, though, she is positively beaming with excitement at the idea of her wedding. She really loves her fiancé, almost fanatically so.
He's made me very happy.
Miss Berenice, you're soon to be married. Oh my.
Once left alone, we begin to hear her inner thoughts.
I hope he hasn't asked me out of pity. No, certainly not.
Every day after the engagement was a balancing act of emotions for Berenice. She enjoyed the happy news, but needed to control her excitement to maintain a healthy equilibrium.
Egaeus will look very handsome.
Dear Emily, the happy day will soon be upon us. I'm certain Doctor would say all this excitement is not good for me, but I haven't felt so well in years upon years. I am concerned about Egaeus. He continues to be as bookish as ever, but he is often distracted and distant. I feel certain, once our marriage vows are taken, he will adjust, as I will, to the unusual state of being happy. Please, please come see us. Your loving friend, Berenice.
He's so distant. I hope he's all right. Egaeus?
Huh?
I'm sorry to distract you. I wanted to tell you, Cook's chosen duck for the wedding feast. Egaeus? Darling? Oh, you're occupied. I'll return at a better time.
Whoa. Haven't I seen that painting before?
Egaeus doesn't look well at all.
It was Edwin's. That was the painting on display when I first arrived at the house.
Perhaps I should get the doctor.
What's it doing here? In the middle of this... Why is the wall melting?
I'm not well either. I must get my medicine. My medicine.
Breathless and dizzied, she stumbled to the desk. And...
My medicine!
Too late.
What's to be done?
Inevitable.
Oh my. Oh my.
I'm sorry.
She's gone.
I'm told this was a frighteningly common occurrence back then. She must have slipped into a death-like catatonia. Keyword, death-like.
No. 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 No.
The sad news broke, and they dissolved the engagement. They dug her a plot, put on a service, and laid Berenice to rest, only for her to snap out of it, 6 feet under.
Please. I'm alive. Alive. Thank God.
So it wasn't a love story. That one being told from Berenice's perspective was as cryptic as the Telltale Heart from that of the old man. Just what was the story? Berenice was sick. Egaeus proposed to her. She went catatonic and got buried alive. And then she was dug up, only to be killed in her coffin. Something was missing. Something pivotal had been removed. Something that, surely, would explain why Edwin had represented that story with a painting of this. Hang on a moment. When Egaeus went to dig up and kill his fiancée, how could he have known that
She's alive. I know it.
Oh, shit.
I can feel her blood flowing through the house. I hear her whisper. I hear her very heart. I've pounded at the door to her vault. I swear, I hear rustling within. Do you understand? She lives.
Oh. This game is supposed to be a puppet show, isn't it? I mean, of course it is. They're all puppets and always have been. But for the very first time, it feels like I can see the strings. Or rather, the invisible hands. You know, the hands that tweak the arms and turn the head. The hands that run and hide before the camera takes the photo. The hands that pretended not to recognize me at the carnival. The hands that prevented Fortunato from trying to escape. The hands that dismembered the body. The hands that invited the police to search. The hands that forced Edwin's concession to Henry. The hands that sealed Elise, still breathing, into a casket. The hands that have been my cursor the entire game. think I need to sit down.
Your brother has lost his sanity. Not even embers can restrain him. I understand you carried messages between Elisa and him. Then come, carry one more. Henry is of an exceedingly sensitive nature. When such a man succumbs to delusions, it's best to bring him slowly around by way of that same delusion. He believes Elise to be alive. Let him receive a letter from her. Deliver him this message. Let him believe it to be from Elise. Let him read by her own hand that she is no more.
My dearest, dearest Henry, you alone have felt my lingering presence in this house. I must see you. Please, please meet me on the path below the cliff just after dusk. Please, my love.
After dusk? It's after dusk now.
I tried to follow, but my haste made me clumsy.
As the narrator threw open the doors and stood witness to the scene on the cliffs, the game's audio broke one last time.
My wrath falls with certainty. Your brother was driven to insanity by breathing paint fumes from a lantern. You carried messages for them. You sang and flirted with her. You tried to save him.
One chapter remained, and it had lots to answer for. And yet I still didn't even know the title of the story. What's the name of the Poe story with Berenice? Oh. But wait. It's not in my little black book of Poe. Shit. What if his perspective is as cryptic as hers? What if I need to read it to understand? What if I just want to read it? Do you know something about koalas that I have always wondered about? I once read somewhere that they sleep, on average, 18 to 22 hours a day. And a day for a koala is the same as a day for a human, of course, 24 hours. That means the koala spends 75% of its life asleep, and only a quarter or less of its life awake. It's incredible, isn't it? As a human, I tend to only sleep 8 hours a day, which leaves the majority of my life conscious and awake, but it does make me wonder about the psyche of the koala. What would happen if we humans slept like koalas? If you spent most of your life asleep, and the remainder of it awake, would that not make your consciousness the dream? How attached to reality do you suppose you would be if you slept for 18 hours a day? And what if you slept for 24 hours a day? What if you slept for 7 days a week? What if it was your nature to sleep uninterrupted, perpetually detached from the corporeal realm, and totally unfettered in your imagination, until someone came and tapped you on the shoulder to see if you were still there? Herein lies the horror of the story called Berenice. I should not understate that even as I became more and more curious about Poe in making this video, this story was a very challenging read. There are even moments scattered about the text where the author character expresses that it is unlikely he will be understood. It's gotten to the point where I've typed the whole thing by hand and am still not sure of some of its meaning. So, instead of a clarified and empirical explanation like I gave you with the other two stories, this time the best I can offer is to show you what my investigation has yielded, and thus allow you to come to your own conclusions. Here we begin with Egaeus exactly where we found him last time, sitting behind the desk in his cherished library. The chapter begins by writing a letter to the family doctor, only he stops short after a couple sentences. Seemingly abandoning the letter, he gets up and begins pacing the room.
Berenice. Ever less the happy cousin I remember from my youth. Her steady decline. I am much concerned about Berenice.
Egaeus has a peculiar relationship with this library. It is briefly mentioned at the beginning of the story that his mother died in here. This chair in particular seems to evoke a memory of that event.
It's your mother. She's fallen ill in the library. She has something she wants to tell you.
She's almost gone.
In the same breath, he goes on to say that he was also born in this library, as well as some other cryptic things. Make of this passage what you will. The recollection of my earliest years are connected with that chamber, and with its volumes, of which latter I will say no more. Here died my mother. Herein was I born, but it is mere idleness to say that I had not lived before. And this is where he really goes off the deep end. That the soul has no previous existence. You deny it. Let us not argue the matter. Convinced myself, I seek not to convince. There is, however, a remembrance of aerial forms, of spiritual and meaning eyes, a remembrance which will not be excluded. A memory, like a shadow, vague, variable, indefinite, unsteady, and like a shadow too, in the impossibility of my getting rid of it, while the sunlight of my reason shall exist.
Young man, our lineage has stood honorably for centuries.
Apart from the echoes of his ancestors, you might notice another distinguishing characteristic about Egaeus' perspective. The whispers have followed us. The game has taken many creative liberties up to this point, but really, I must express that I take issue with this one. Putting voices in Egaeus' head like this serves to imply that he is a common schizophrenic, but the book never alludes to him experiencing hallucinations of that nature. I take issue with this because, and this is where the most of my confusion in reading Berenice comes from, I really don't think Egaeus is all that mad. I don't know if there's a word for what Egaeus is, but the best that I can come up with is daydreamer. He is an avid daydreamer, and has been all his life. Spending his entire boyhood reading the books in this library has fostered him a vast imagination, allowing him to spend tremendous lengths of time in deep meditation. Egaeus has been known to spend so much time in this daydreaming reverie that I would go as far as to say he very much is the hypothetical human koala I suggested to you moments ago. A man who is perpetually asleep, always adrift in a dream. realities of the world affected me as visions, and as visions only, while the wild ideas of the land of dreams became, in turn, not the material of my everyday existence, but in very deed that existence, utterly and solely in itself. I believe this talent for meditation is, at its core, a pure and good thing. It was not until his affliction set in that it became something else. Returning to the desk after a stroll around the room, I was surprised to find that Egaeus' letter had finished writing itself. And scattered about the newly written text were things I had just heard him mutter to himself as we paced the room. I think this is the game's subtle way of saying we never actually went for a walk. That Egaeus' daydreams are perfectly capable of opening and closing seamlessly.
We burden you with all these cares, but they occupy all my waking thoughts. Yours, Egaeus Poynton.
Egaeus, look after Berenice.
Berenice and I were cousins, and we grew up together in my paternal halls. I, ill of health and buried in gloom. She, agile, graceful, and overflowing with energy. Hers the ramble on the hillside, mine the studies of the cloister. I, living within my own heart. She, roaming carelessly through life. Berenice, I call upon her name. And from the grey ruins of memory, 1,000 tumultuous recollections are startled at the sound. Vividly is her image before me now, as in the early days of her lightheartedness and joy. And then all is mystery and tenor, in a tale which should not be told. A fatal disease fell like the simoon upon her frame, and even while I gazed upon her, the spirit of change swept over her, pervading her mind, her habits, and her character, and, in a manner the most subtle and terrible, disturbing even the identity of her person. The destroyer came and went. And the victim, where is she? I knew her not, or knew her no longer, as Berenice.
Cousin, you never leave this room. Come with me for a stroll.
Her eyes have grown lusterless. Even in the days of her beauty, I never loved her. Yet she has loved me long.
Egaeus, are you all right?
Through the grey of the early morning, among the trellised shadows of the forest at noonday, and in the silence of my library at night, she had flitted by my eyes, and I had seen her, not as the living and breathing Berenice, but as the Berenice of a dream. Not as a thing to admire, but to analyze. Not as an object of love. I called to mind that she had loved me long. And in an evil moment.
Berenice, it occurs to me that perhaps we should marry.
Egaeus.
Yes, I believe we should. Perhaps come November.
I'm quite overcome.
Help someone! Berenice has fallen!
No, I'm all right. It's past.
Come, miss, you've taken another of your turns.
To tell you the truth, I haven't yet worked out why Egaeus describes his proposal to Berenice as an evil moment. Setting aside that cousins intermarrying is a gross and antiquated practice, I'd almost say that his proposal was a selfless act. He certainly didn't do it out of lust, writing that even when Berenice was beautiful, he had not been attracted to her. and he also could not have found any personal or financial gain. The two were already of the same family. Unfortunately, I'm afraid he proposed to her for the exact reason Berenice feared. Out of pity.
Perhaps we should marry.
A girl who had loved him all her life was dying a slow, sad, unbecoming death. And so he agreed to marry her, to help alleviate the... Again, I find that the game has editorialized Egaeus' illness and misrepresented him as a lunatic. Nowhere in the book does he speak of hallucinations like this. The true nature of his affliction of the nerves is stranger still. My own disease, where I have been told that I should call it by no other appellation, then grew rapidly upon me, and assumed finally a monomaniac character of a novel and extraordinary form. This monomania, as he terms it, doesn't seem to be a diagnosis that is still in use today. In the 19th century, it was characterized as becoming fixated or obsessed with one particular thing. At a glance, monomania may seem more like a quirk than a mental illness, and in many cases that's probably true. But when combined with Egaeus' powerful imagination and interminable capacity for daydreaming, it becomes a wholly undiscovered condition.
I will muse for long unwearied hours, with my attention riveted to some frivolous device in the margin of a book, or become absorbed for the better part of the day in a quaint shadow falling upon the floor, or repeat monotonously some common word until the sound ceases to convey any idea whatever to the mind.
To lose all sense of motion or physical existence by means of absolute bodily quiescence, long and obstinately persevered in. Such were a few of the most common and least pernicious vagaries induced by a condition of the mental faculties, not indeed altogether unparalleled, but certainly bidding defiance to anything like analysis or explanation. Egaeus then makes mention of a fixation that might be the record holder, claiming that it, quote, occupied my undivided time for many weeks of laborious and fruitless investigation. It was a sentence from Tertullian's De Carne Christi. The Son of God died. It is credible because it is absurd. And being buried, he rose again. It is certain because it is impossible. Upon an afternoon in the winter of the year, one of those unseasonably warm, calm, and misty days which are the nurse of the beautiful halcyon, I sat as I thought, alone, in the inner apartment of the library. But, uplifting my eyes, I saw that Berenice stood before me. Was it my own excited imagination, or the misty influence of the atmosphere? An icy chill ran through my frame. A sense of insufferable anxiety oppressed me. A consuming curiosity invaded my soul. The eyes were lifeless and lusterless, and I shrank involuntarily from their glassy stare to the contemplation of the thin and shrunken lips. They parted, and in a smile of peculiar meaning, the teeth of the changed Berenice disclosed themselves slowly to my view.
Oči čarnie, oči strasnie, oči žgučie I prekrasnie, kaký
Would to God that I had never beheld them, or that, having done so, I had died. The shutting of a door disturbed me, and, looking up, I found that my cousin had departed from the chamber. but from the disordered chamber of my brain. The white and ghastly spectrum of the teeth would not be driven away. Not a speck on their surface, not a shade on their enamel. I saw them now even more unequivocally than I beheld them then. Then came the full fury of my monomania, and I struggled in vain against its strange and irresistible influence. In the multiplied objects of the external world, I had no thoughts but for the teeth. For these I longed with a frenzied desire.
It is only by way of the teeth that I can restore myself to peace and to reason.
And the evening closed in upon me thus, and then the darkness came and tarried and went, and the day again dawned, and the mists of a second night were now gathering around, and still I sat motionless in that solitary room, and still I sat buried in meditation, and still the phantasma of the teeth maintained its terrible ascendancy. At length, there broke in upon my dreams a cry as of horror and dismay, and thereunto after the pause succeeded the sound of troubled voices. I arose from my seat, and throwing open one of the doors of the library, I saw standing out in the antechamber a servant maiden, all in tears.
My lord, we just looked in on Berenice. I can scarce say it. She is no more.
She had been seized with epilepsy in the early morning, and now, at the closing in of the night, the grave was ready for its tenant. It seemed to me that I had newly awakened from a confused and exciting dream. I knew it was now midnight, and I was well aware that, since the setting of the sun, Berenice had been interred. But of that dreary period which intervened, I had no positive, at least no definite comprehension. Yet its memory was replete with horror. Horror more horrible from being vague, and terror more terrible from ambiguity. And, like the spirit of a departed sound, the shrill and piercing shriek of a female voice seemed to be ringing in my ears. I had done a deed. What was it? I asked myself the question aloud, and the whispering echoes of the chamber answered me. What was it? On the table beside me burned a lamp, and near it lay a little box. It was of no remarkable character, and I had seen it frequently before, for it was the property of the family physician. But how came it there upon my table? And why did I shudder in regarding it? My eyes dropped to the open pages of a book, and to a sentence underscored therein. The words were the singular but simple ones of the poet Abandonware. Digabant mihi sedalis, si sepulchrum amicae visitarum. Curas meas aliquantulum fore levitas.
my lord, a cry in the dead of night. We went in search. Oh, my lord, her grave disturbed, sir. Her enshrouded body, bloody, yet still breathing. Oh, yes, alive. Oh, sir, look. Oh, sir, what's this?
No pestilence has ever been so fatal or so hideous. Blood is its avatar and its seal.
The endless search through Abandonware to find lost epics of horror has slowly become an obsession of mine. I suppose I'm drawn to it because, by definition, Abandonware suggests something that is haunting and forgotten. A horror story that is arcane and esoteric. Something so old that it becomes new. And in playing The Dark Eye, I found all that and more, only not in the places that I expected. The game had spectacle and artistry, and for these things I look back on it with great fondness, but I cannot credit it with having the ancient, terrible, arcane horror that I initially set out to find. This I can only credit to Poe.
For me, the celebration has just begun.
Playing this game with a book in my hand has taught me something sincere and beautiful. That some things in writing will not be adapted to clay, or film, or pixels, or any medium. I now believe I have been searching for these lost epics of horror in the wrong place altogether. That the ultimate Abandonware is the written word. Too often have I thought there's nothing new under the sun, that there was nothing left to excite me in this genre. And in my desperation to find a new horror fix, I had dived into some of the most obscure and terrible games ever made. But this one taught me that I haven't seen it all. That there are, in fact, oceans of forgotten horror stories in this world. And the same is true of every genre. And despite my eager attempt to show you what I found here, I promise there is an experience to be had in reading these books yourself that no 2-hour video essay will ever be able to recreate.
The full import of the lantern, the madness-inducing fumes, Henry's premonitions, all these came clear to me at once, and I could feel and hear a great rending, as of a mirror breaking, roll throughout the house, growing in volume and strength. And even as I looked on, the house around us, the vault, the lantern, Elise, her bloody eyes, all shattered into 100,000 shards, shattered as did the dark depths of my very soul.
Regrettably, I was not able to make contact with the developers this time. The lead creative, Mr. Russell Lees, seems to have passed away just 3 years ago. His IMDb page lists a long tenure of writing for the Assassin's Creed games, with the Dark Eye appearing at the very bottom. There's a great many things I would ask the developers of this game, but it might just be better that those questions go unanswered. Maybe there is a subtle meta-narrative meaning behind the ubiquitous cursor. Maybe I need to touch grass. This is for you to decide. The game hit shelves on October 31st of '95 and did not perform well. Inkscape released one more game by the title of Bad Day on the Midway, which doesn't look like something I want to play. Afterwards, they dissolved. I can really hardly blame the game for flopping like it did. It was experimental in 1995, and in many ways it is still experimental in 2025. Despite its quirks, its corruptions, its occasional narrative infidelity, and its cumbersome 15-minute slideshows, The Dark Eye has a rightful claim as the best adaptation of Poe ever. And to think it's been abandoned. I tend to upload a lot of weird shit on this channel, so do subscribe at your own risk. Videos like these I make as a hobby, and as such, I'm afraid I can't promise that they will be published with any regularity. Still, your support is greatly appreciated, and I thank you all for your very valuable time. Be well, be safe, read a book, and vote for Holt.
Sleep at last.